You dial up more Telstra stock or hang up on it? Can bank share prices keep going higher? And the IMF warns us about 2021. Really scary. Ooh, I'm scared. I'm Peter Switzer.
I'm Paul Rickard.
And we're
mad about money.
Well, Paul, should we buy Telstra? Yesterday, the chairman came out and basically vowed to keep the dividend where it is, even if it means changing the payout rules. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, strong affirmation from the chairman yesterday at the Telstra AGM that the dividend this year would be 16 cents. A couple of the analysts were forecasting it might be cut from 16 to about 14, so the market consensus was about 15. We'll see that shift back up. That's looking reasonably attractive. Now, for the long-term dividend, Peter, for the 16 cents, this is what he's really talking about. Telstra needs to have an underlying EBITDA of between $7.5 and $8.5 billion. Yeah. This year it's forecasting somewhere between $6.5 and $7 billion. So it still has this problem about how is it going to generate more earnings over the next couple of years. So post-NBN, when the whole rollout is finished and the whole special dividend unwinds, it can maintain the dividend. So a strong hint from Telstra that it's going to do everything it can to keep the 16 cents. Yeah. But I don't think we're there yet, and I don't think the market's yet going to change its forecast. So I think this year, we're going to see some support, 16 cents in FY21, FY22 and 23 starting to look like, there's still going to be some questions out there. So look, under $3 Telstra's, I reckon it's in the buy zone. Yeah, it's not a super steal because, it is Telstra, right?
Yeah, it is pretty boring.
But it's not a sell either. And at 16 cents for next year, that's a fairly prescriptive, that's a yield of almost 6% fully franked.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also, the analysts think Telstra has about 24% upside, so that's one thing. And secondly, Julia Lee has said to me before, the iPhone 12, which is released today, is going to be 5G enhanced, and she reckons that's going to be a fantastic thing. Now, she's a bit of a tech head, she might be different from the rest of us, but Telstra must be a big seller of iPhones. That could be a plus for Telstra. I've got to say, I'm tempted to buy Telstra at this point in time.
Yeah, interesting that on Telstra, the analysts are much more bullish on Telstra. They're valuing things like the infrastructure business, almost like what they're going to get out when it's sold, and that's partly what's in the share price. The problem, though, with Telstra is it's got to generate more revenue, Peter, and it hasn't been able to do that. And despite all the stuff like 5G and the new iPhone, we're not paying more on our plans. We're actually paying less. So that's Telstra's challenge. It's also COVID-19 impacted. The small businesses. It's about $400 million coming off its bottom line due to COVID-19.
And just imagine if Telstra actually was good to its customers, what that might do to their business.
It's in the buy zone. It's just not a super steal. But anyhow, I'll go with you on that one.
Okay, let's keep the banks, Paul. Yep. We've been supporting the banks. We've looked like we could have been wrong. They've now come good.
If you watched our show last Wednesday, we said this budget was damn good for banks and retailers. The market on Wednesday was asleep, right? It took a long time.
No, they had to watch the show first. Then they
rallied. Now banks, we're getting the majors, the NABs and the ANZ and Westpac back up towards $20. Now you recall, back in the period between late May and early June, we had a huge rally in bank shares. In fact, NAB went from something like $15.50 to $20.50. That's an increase of over a third in about 2.5 weeks. I reckon we're getting back towards that top level. Above $20, I reckon they're going to run into some resistance. So, look, banks are value, but they're going to go with the market, and there's still lots of ups and downs to this market. One interesting story out this morning, Bank of Queensland's out with its full-year result. Dividend of 12 cents. That's for the year compared to 65 cents last year.
It is better than nothing.
It is better than nothing. It's probably a little better than expected. Bank of Queensland's, I guess, a sort of recovery story. I just can't get yet excited to buy the regional banks. I still think you stick with the majors. But, so I think George Frazis, the MD, is doing the right thing. They need to invest in technology. It's an investment story. Maybe, they're sort of starting to talk about perhaps, what we call a neutral jaws next year. In other words, revenue growing at the same rate as expenses. That's positive.
Yeah.
Maybe the market might, I haven't had a close look at this number, but might just have a bit more attention to Bank of Queensland. But it has been a dog for investors.
Yes, right. It's supposed to be a small business bank. It's time it did something for small business to actually show that a small business bank. But IMF, Paul.
Oh, you're the only one who cares about the IMF. No, boring, right?
No. As an economist, I'm scared that news outlets actually lead with the IMF has downgraded the outlook for 2021. Well, they actually downgraded the outlook for 2020, and it's nearly over. Who cares if they downgrade? We know what 2020 was. It was crap. But 2021, they said we would grow by 5.4%. That's a big number for the world economy. Guess what they downgraded it to? 5.2, Paul.
Whoa, I'm scared.
Seriously, the IMF, the World Bank, OECD, the Treasury, the RBA, credit rating agencies, they always have these stupid growth predictions. They're generally always wrong. Don't worry about it. Pray a vaccine comes. If a vaccine comes, we will grow like Topsy in 2021.
And I have to say, the IMF is the worst, the least reliable, and the slowest on the scene. So only people who care about the IMF and the only people reported are the ABC. Why's that?
Yeah, funny that. All right, now before we go, next week, our virtual online investment strategy day is on. It's usually live with 1,000 people in Sydney. It's on Zoom. This year, Tuesday the 20th, that's next Tuesday, Wednesday the 21st. Paul, me, and some of Australia's best fund managers and stock pickers will be there. Great investment ideas, great education on investing, and a chance for you to ask questions online of all the people we've got. And we've also got the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, who's going to show up and talk about his budget, and I'll ask him about the implications for investing as well. If you are mad about money, you have to join us.
I'll be there.
We rehearsed that. He screwed it up.
No, I didn't. You were supposed to get up before that.
Okay. Yes, he will.
I will be there.
Okay, fantastic.
You'll be there.
No. Just click on the description below to register. I'm Peter Switzer.
I'm Paul Rickard.
And we're mad about money.
Shh.